It is Friday, January 31st. I'm Geoff Schwartz. That is Matt Ford. This is Geoff Schwartz is Smarter Than You. We get to talk football, Matthew. No gambling this week because the Super Bowl is not this Sunday. It is next Sunday. There's no Pro Bowl to gamble on. That happened yesterday, I think. Some sort of game was played yesterday between skilled professional athletes. I didn't watch a second of it, so we don't have to recap it. So we'll talk about a little bit of a Super Bowl preview. We'll talk about Super Bowl week. I'm in there all week, most of the week with Fox. We'll be covering the game for them, but also covering them in this podcast as well. We'll talk about the coaching moves we've seen so far. Every vacancy's been filled, but the Saints, who seem to be leaning towards the Eagles offensive coordinator. And we'll put a bow on the Commanders season. It's time for Matt to talk about his Commanders. A great season for them, even though tough loss on Sunday. Matt, how long did it take you to get over the loss?
It was pretty it was also unfamiliar, Jeff. Like it was the whole game, and we'll talk about them later. I felt I kept being like, okay, well, they're gonna come back because that's what they do. And it was closer than it felt really until like halfway through the third quarter, probably.
Yeah.
Um so I was pretty bummed out. I skipped the first quarter of Bills Chiefs. I was like, I just need to like kind of let this marinate for a bit. And but by the end of the AFC Championship, I was fine. I was very appreciative of the season. And I gotta say, like watching that Chiefs Bills game from the Commander side, where like I maybe was a bit cynical about football for the first half of that game. None of that Chiefs Bills game, at no point did I think the Bills were going to win. Like when they went up, I was just like, yeah. So the Chiefs are just like they're just going to win. Like that's just how this goes. Like this is the round where you
Yeah.
can't hide the flaws anymore. And that was kind of an interesting experience. Like that's just seeing it the whole time, being
Yeah.
like, oh, nice play. Like glad the Bills are up. Like that sucks. They're going to get their heart ripped out again. Like it was very interesting watching the second game. If it had been the later game, I think it would have gone into Monday for me, but I was able to
Yeah.
reset pretty fast.
Yeah. Also expectations matter, right? If you're a Bills
Yes.
fan, it's your fourth straight season of doing this. You're bummed. If you're the Commanders, you're ecstatic to be in this situation. I don't believe in the idea of like house money. Like you never know if you're back in the same situation ever again, but you know that your team is going to be good with Jane Daniels and with Dan Quinn. And Kingsbury is going to leave after one more year, most likely, but you'll find another OC. I think Daniels is so good. It will matter who the OC is, but not as much as maybe other quarterbacks, right? And you're gonna attract top OCs that want to work with him too. Like that's one thing that's always going to happen. You're going to have the best of the best. You're going to want to work with Jane Daniels. Um, I just hope that anyone who thinks the NFL is rigged has been making money betting on the Chiefs every week. That's something you
Yeah.
should be doing. If you're a rigged guy, if you want to get 45 minutes of talking about the Chiefs and Chiefs Rangers syndrome, I will point you to the What's Right podcast. That's when you can do that. We're not going to do that here. I listened to the whole thing. It was fantastic. Nick nailed all of it. It's nice that your team is good, and for so many years they weren't, and now he gets to just unload for 5 years straight on people. It's the best. I did it when the Giants were winning in baseball for 5 years. My Ducks haven't been there yet, Matt. I've been waiting, but the ammo is in the clip for the Ducks winning a championship. But yes, if you want to listen to Chiefs, go do that. We're not going to do that here. What we are going to do is talk about the Super Bowl, Matt. Chiefs, Eagles, close point spread, 1.5. Totals anywhere from 48.5 to 49.5. I had bet on the Chiefs and I had bet on the over. I think this is a high scoring game. I'm betting on the Chiefs to prove it. And a couple of things really interest me, Matt, about this game early on before we talk about Super Bowl week, what it entails. We'll talk a little Commanders, and we'll talk coaches. Um, First down for me is super important in this game.
Mm.
If the Eagles would like, I think, to do a Saquon Barkley game, it works for them, right? A Saquon Barkley game, 20 to 23 carries, limit not the exposure to Hurts, but just the idea that Hurts has to carry the offense for 4 quarters. And the Chiefs have to be good on first down. If they limit the first down run to 2nd and 8, 2nd and 9, get a TFL, then the offense might turn more to Jalen Hurts. I think the Chiefs like their matchups if it's a passing game with the corners they have and the pressure they can bring. Hurts is not the best when facing pressure, right, Matt? When extra blitzers show up and things like that. That's where the Chiefs excel, is finding weaknesses in your protection and taking advantage of that. That's where I think they want to live. So to me, first down is a huge down. If this becomes
Hmm.
a Saquon Barkley 7 yards on first down, Matt, it's the Eagles' first down. Because then they get 3 plays to get 3 yards, right? You want to avoid those third and shorts that turn into fourth downs. If you stop them, you want to avoid those situations. On the other side of the ball, the Eagles would love to be in pass rush mode as much as possible, right? And that becomes a situation where you win first down, you become in pass rush mode. I am really worried about Chiefs being able to run the ball in this game, Matt. They moved their left guard, Joe Tooney, as we know, to left tackle. He's been good over there, but it's hurt the run game. Now you add in Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter for the Eagles. How do you run the football in this game? That turns to a Patrick Mahomes pass attempt game. So that's why I think it's high scoring. I think the Chiefs are going to sell out on first down to stop the run, which forces Hurts to throw the ball. Mahomes is at 35 and a half or 36 and a half pass attempts. I think he's over that, Matt. The Chiefs
Hmm.
have to throw the ball a lot in this game, but they won't be able to run the football.
Interesting. The Chiefs have not allowed, this according to Jackson, a 100-yard rusher in 18 straight playoff games.
Correct.
Pretty interesting. I think the things that I'm sort of most interested in, the Chiefs defense is sort of a bit of a polarizing topic because I think the casual fan is now up to speed and understands like they've improved a lot. Chris Jones is so dominant. They have good pressure off the edge. They have a good secondary. They have good linebackers. Like it all seems to make sense, but I think they're a little bit more vulnerable than we think. And Philly is one of those teams like the feeling I had watching them last week, you don't want to be down 10 to them. Like
Correct.
when they're rolling and they have every option at their disposal, they kind of get this edge to them where they get kind of cocky, like they're kind of bullies. And I mean that not in a negative way. Like they can kind of just get on top of you and just dominate. And I'm curious, like I think it's interesting you brought up first down, like first quarter, second quarter. Like can
Yeah.
the Chiefs kind of come out and match the Eagles' physicality on both sides of the line? Can that defense be so strong and stout against the run that then Philly has to sort of improvise a little? Because I think that you're right. Like the most the if the Eagles are running the ball successfully, they're probably going to win. Like it's if Saquon is running
Yeah.
downhill the whole game, it's impossible to stop them. There's too many ways that they can win. But if they're getting away from the run for whatever reason, which sometimes it's been self-inflicted with them, they could be in trouble.
Yeah.
And I just, I think Spags and the defensive unit will figure out a way to sort of keep them off balance. But the way they played last week, I don't think they would have lost to anyone. Like they were so
Yeah.
confident, they were just so they were so versatile. Like everybody got involved from Goddard to AJ to obviously Saquon. Like it was impressive. Like it felt overwhelming in a way that I don't know any other team in the league can really make you feel.
Yeah. So that's a good point. And the thing that makes the Chiefs so dangerous, and this is why they keep winning, Matt, it's why you can't bet against them. And you sort of mentioned this as far as sort of the game flow and game script and how this goes is if you make a mistake, the Chiefs are the best and maybe since the Patriots or maybe ever of taking advantage of that, right? And so if the Eagles do make some mistakes or get in a situation where the Chiefs can take advantage of any little flaw, they're going to do it. And the Chiefs defense, I think, sums this up really well, Matt, where yeah, sometimes you watch a player like, oh, it's not great. But then in these big moments, man, they come through really, really well in these big moments. They win the big moments. That's
Yeah,
what the Chiefs
they do.
always do. And because of that, I think it's so hard now. We like the advanced data, right? We like DVOA. We like using Pine Sports Jackson, right? We like using these tools to help us guide us through the season. It feels like the Chiefs' numbers are never applicable to any analysis of them, right, Matt? Because you look at what they do, and Mahomes at times you're like pretty pedestrian. Then you watch some of the throws he makes, you're like, oh, geez. I mean, that 2 point conversion to Watson, he was basically standing parallel and threw
Yeah.
the ball off 1 foot to Watson. And you watch all these big moments, and the battle on paper doesn't show it, but then in the big moments, they all win them, Matt. They all
Yeah.
win these moments, and so the numbers to me aren't. I can't preview the Chiefs based off numbers,
Yeah.
but I preview how I watch them play football.
I mean, there's just like it sounds kind of like lame to say this, especially from like the two of us who never, was a professional athlete, but like there is just a difference in like the difference between the Bills and the Chiefs is not talent. Like it's not Mahomes is better than Allen
No.
necessarily. It's execution and
Yep.
it's champion mentality. Like when it comes down to like they need to get the fourth down, they need to get the run play, like they need to make the pass, like they just do it.
Yeah.
And like I grew up a tennis fan. Like you see that with, we grew up with these men's tennis players, these like four guys who just had it. Well, the rest of them never did. And you see it with Mahomes, you see it with like guys like Steph Curry and LeBron James, and like all throughout sports, there's just this other level. And the NFC game, that was a talent gap. Like I think Jane
Yeah.
Daniels might have that mentality. That was why the Eagles won. In the Bills Chiefs game, it was just a mentality thing. And whether it was the refs were in their head, Buffalo, or there was a great blitz at the end of the game, like a couple of little moments, like that's the difference. And the Chiefs nail 100% of them. And
Yeah.
I think like it's one thing when it's one person on a tennis court. It's one thing when it's like 50 players, a coaching staff. Like it's just an amazing feat that they're all so
Yeah.
locked in on these key moments. And I think you can't quantify that. And I think that's why
No.
we have to sort of be realistic here and just say, like, well, this isn't about Saquon and AJ and all these guys. It's like when it's 4th and 5, last week Jalen Hurts made a great pass. Will he
He
be able
did.
to
Yeah.
do
To
that
burn.
against the
Yeah.
Chiefs, right? Like
Yeah.
when there's a little bit more talent on the
There's those
field and it's
moments.
the
Yep.
Super Bowl. Um, so I'm curious to see, Jalen Hurts looked great. And there are games where like I'm convinced that guy is like he could be a top 5 quarterback, right? It's like he's right in that level below the top 4 where
Yeah.
Jaden and Stafford and those guys are. Like he's right there. Well,
He
let's
is
see
really
it.
good.
He's really good. And
I think
when
if
he's
you,
running, he's
it's
impossible to
funny.
really stop.
If you and the Eagles did a good job because they just played zone and dared the Commanders to try to beat them, and it's just not they're not ready for that game yet. And Cosme being out, I think hurt them as well. So we'll talk more about the Commanders in a few minutes. Matt, I'm going to New Orleans on Tuesday night. I'm there Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday
Okay.
morning. That's 4 days too long for the Super Bowl.
Sure is.
For those who are unaware of Super Bowl week, let's talk about it quickly. So there is what's called Radio Row. Okay. It's typically at a convention center. It's where not all, most of the media is located for the entire week of the Super Bowl. There's a pit that hosts like 94.7 The Bull from Milwaukee is there on like a table. Okay.
Yep.
Now it's gotten more elaborate over the years where people have pop-ups and whatnot. And there's some of the big companies are there now. Underdog will have a big setup. And then around the edge of the radio pit are the big Sirius XM set, the big FanDuel set will be there. There'll be a big DraftKings set. There'll be the Fox Sports Radio set, CBS, NBC. Like the big networks will be around there. And then Fox Sports, who is having the Super Bowl, will have a separate set on Bourbon Street where all their shows, including Bear Bets podcast, will be filmed out of.
Nice.
Yes. And as you can imagine, it is a shit show. Radio Row is a free for all. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
For so I'm people there all week. Some people are all week. Like the Kansas City radio stations will be there all week. So will Philly. A lot of people come in Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and leave Friday. They try not to stay the weekend. They try to get their work done and get out of there, Matt. And Radio Row, how many times have you been on Radio Row for work?
Probably 5.
Did you do so? Obviously, Good Morning Football.
Yeah, I don't know if I ever went with them.
You go for Garbage Time?
Garbage Time,
Yeah.
Fox before that. When it was in New York, I w was there with whatever I was doing. Yeah, I've been enough times to have seen a thing or two.
Yeah. So what happens is for people like me, I don't have a handler. Okay, like my agent will be there, but I love Debbie, but like she doesn't have to handle me. But that you schedule like interviews, right? And you go to these radio stations and you do the 10-minute interview and you go somewhere else and do another 10-minute interview. But what happens is people start pulling you aside. So Matt, the producer, will run up to me, hey, Schwartz, can you give me 12 minutes? I look at my calendar and I'm like, I don't know, man. And you're like, oh, well,
Give me 9.
4:15. Yeah, yeah. Like it's just madhouse where You're just trying to grab people to do interviews because the point of being there is to get the interviews, right? Like you can do a talk radio show from home, but the advantage of being Radio Row is getting the in-person interviews with all the players. And then as the week progresses, Matt. So I'm normally like a Tuesday, Wednesday type of guy. Thursday, Friday come around.
Right.
And that is where like the Joe Montana shows up
Right.
with 12 people with him hawking a product. That's where all the big dogs come in on Thursday and Friday.
Joe Montana's a hustler, man. He's got
Oh
a new
yeah.
product every year. It's
Yeah.
Skechers, Guinness. He's the
I
guy's
did a
cashing the checks. God
one
bless
year
him.
I interviewed Tony Gonzalez for Mexico's from Avocado. Like I've done all the
Oh
interviews and
yeah.
I'm doing Sirius Radio Wednesday and Thursday for 3 hours each day. We're gonna have like a list, like a spreadsheet of like the 10 guests we get with the stuff they're hawking. Um, And as the week gets longer, it just gets a lot crazier in Radio Row. I once saw, it obviously was staged, but two UFC fighters meet in the
Hmm.
corner and like try to fight each other.
God, what
Um,
year was that? I was there too.
that was Miami, I think.
Oh, that was Miami. That's
I
right.
have the video of that of them doing that. That was
Yeah,
in
that's right.
Miami.
That's right.
Um,
Yep.
and it gets progressively crazier. There are people show up from like international media
Yeah.
that sometimes wear more provocative clothing than other people in the American media. Um, it's just a madhouse. And then there are the parties. So it's a networking event. That's
Yeah.
why I go for like 2 days. I go to network typically, go to a couple parties, see what I have to see, because I don't live where my bosses live. My bosses live in Los Angeles and now a little bit of Las Vegas and sometimes in New York. And so I don't get to LA very much. I have a life in Charlotte. So I go to the Super Bowl. I get to see my bosses for the
Yeah.
only time all season. It's like my basically what do you call the end of year meeting you do?
Like a holiday party almost.
Almost that,
Yeah.
but like what's the
Like a
end of year meeting you
review.
do with employees? Reviews.
Yeah.
Yes. That's where I get my review for the year,
Oh,
essentially.
interesting. Yeah. And you'd rather get it at the Madden party than, in a coffee
Well,
shop.
look, like for example, like my Fox Sports Radio, I talk to Scott often on text message, but I'll get to see him and be like, "Hey man, how's the show go this year?
Right.
Like, what do you have for suggestions? What do you like?" I don't get to do that otherwise. Like, I guess I could call him and ask him. So that's what like Monday through Friday is. Like, I'm going to go to the volume party and all the Fox execs will be there. Calling like all everyone will be there. I'm going. Then my wife comes this year on Friday night, and then we go out and
Oh,
like
fun.
yeah, she'll come. She's coming for 48 hours. But dude, I'll tell you, it's so funny. So she's come to a couple Super Bowls previously, LA for sure. She came in Miami because my brother was playing, and we were younger, and we went out Friday and Saturday night, and then for my brother, we went out Sunday night after they won, like late nights, like 3, 4 in the morning. I don't even drink, like sober, going to see Loud Luxury and Tiesto. And yes, we've been over this many times. The artists that we go to, and all those parties, right, Matt? And they're late, okay? And I actually buy tickets to them. I can't even get VIP. I have to buy tickets, which is fine. I don't mind doing that. And this year, it's Friday. It's coming Friday. Friday night, we're going out with Debbie and Annie. We're actually going with
Oh,
both of
cool.
them Friday night. And then my wife and I were like, "So what do you want to do Saturday?" We were like, I don't know. I think one night's enough to go out. We're just too old now to do like I'm like, let's just go to dinner together somewhere and hang out. Like we're at the age now where we can't go hard every night like we used to for
No.
Super Bowl. The Miami one was the apex because we went to Lizzo one night, Rick Ross and Chainsmokers one night, and
Chainsmokers are there
then
every year. Doesn't matter where.
what?
The
Yeah,
Chainsmokers perform at
yeah.
every Super Bowl week.
And then
I've seen them twice.
the night we saw someone else, I feel like, and then the night Mitch won was Sunday night. We went out to, and then Pitbull performed in Flow Rider at the team hotel.
Mr.
So,
Worldwide himself.
dude,
Unreal.
yeah. So we get to the Chiefs Super Bowl party. It's about the team gets back like midnight, 12:30 ish. My brother probably yeah like 12:30. We met my brother and we go to the team party in the ballroom of the hotel. And you can imagine how insane walking into a Super Bowl party can be. The food was just, I mean, just everything. Um, and Rick Rick Ross had no Floor Rider sort of just finished when we might have actually got into the party. It was like probably 1 o'clock, 1:15, 1:30. And there were rumors that there was another artist coming on at 2 a.m. 2 a.m. Now, mind you, completely sober, just like living life. My brother at about 1:30, 1:45 was like, I'm tired, I'm going to bed. I was like, fair enough. Then I looked around. There were no players there, Matt. The players weren't live. They were gone. They were sleeping. It's all just a family and friends. Like that's what it was there for. 2 a.m., buddy. Here comes Pitbull. 2 to about 3:30. Played in the hotel ballroom of the Chiefs Super Bowl. Now it makes me wonder, do both teams book the same artist and the winner gets the
Oh,
artist?
interesting.
Like if the Chiefs lost, Pitbull's probably not coming to the hotel. Probably
Right.
just goes to the Niners team hotel.
Hmm. Well, that's so interesting. Yeah, it's like an election night party. It's like, it's
Yes.
like all that stuff. That's so
And it was,
interesting.
dude, and like we were like legitimately like Pitbull was like there. Like it was I was Eric Stoneshoot was there, Paul Rudd was there.
Right.
Um and we were just like all in this like mosh pit of friends and family of the Chiefs with no players dancing to Pitbull. And then we had these funnel cake fries at like 4 o'clock in the morning and we went to bed. We're not doing that this year, is my point. You can
Yeah.
choose your own adventure at the Super Bowl. There's plenty of stuff to do or not do. And all I said, I'll go out Friday night with my agent Annie. Um, there's a party Wednesday night I want to go to. Might stay home Thursday night. It's a lot, man. It's a lot.
Yeah. Jeff's referring to our mutual friend Annie Agar. You should check out her podcast, The Offensive Line, which
Yes.
the producer of this show and I work on. You have one flaw in your plan. You should the way to win Super Bowl week is to fly out Saturday night. If you're not staying for the
Yeah.
game,
I
is to
have to
get out
work.
Saturday because, dude, the Saturday night flights, like I remember my flight to Houston, uh, out of from Houston back to New York when I was living there. And the plane, it was literally me and like Dan Patrick. And that was the plane. It was just like no one
Yeah.
else was there. And it was
Like
really nice.
last year I flew back Friday night,
Yeah, Friday night's
but I
great.
have to work
Saturday's good.
but I have to work Sunday.
Right. Oh, well, then yeah, you're toast.
Yeah, I gotta work. I have to do 2 shows Sunday.
Can I tell you two Super Bowl stories?
Yes.
My favorites.
Abs
Okay, so the best year I ever had was San Francisco for 50. That was
yeah, I was there. Yeah.
the Broncos
Broncos,
Panthers.
Panthers. Yep.
And we were doing garbage time from Radio Row there. So we were right when you walked in, we were like the first thing.
Yeah, yeah.
There were other shows at that set, but like when we were there, it felt like we were kind of like the main attraction, which was
Yes.
very cool.
That
Katie
was
did
a
an
big
amazing job
convention
that
center
week.
too. That was a big
Huge.
convention center.
And there
Yeah.
were tons of people walking around. Like I remember seeing like we had Jeff Goldblum on the show. It was just nuts. Like we had so many
It
crazy people on the show that week.
it's different. Radio Row is less. There's less people now than it was pre-COVID.
And I think
I would
too that
say.
was a big Super Bowl and it was a cool city. Like New Orleans probably will get some people, but like it's not a big ask to say to actors like, "Hey, just fly up from Southern
Correct.
California to San Francisco." Like
For a
no big
day.
deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
New Orleans or like Minneapolis or Houston, like those are tougher sells. So I have a big segment that day that I'll talk about in a second. But before that, I'm in the crowd, sort of like warming them up for this bit we're going to do at the end of the show. It's Friday, so it's like the biggest day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Live
you get your
crowd.
big
Yeah. Yeah.
guest, and I'm talking to the crowd, and then I'm sort of giving them the guest later is going to be Drew Brees, and Drew Brees famously had this chant that he used to do with the Saints, where he would like. It was like 1, 2, win for you, 3, 4, win some more. Like it was just like this cool thing. And my
Yeah.
idea was I wanted the crowd to do it with him as
Yeah.
our last segment of the week. So I'm warming up the crowd. I'm talking to people. I'm giving them this sort of lyrics. And I give one to this guy, this tall guy, and I look at him and I'm like, oh shit, that's Kenny Mayne, who like, if Jeff knows who that is, if you're younger, he
Yeah.
was like one of the funniest Sports Center
Sports
anchors
Interactions. Yeah.
and was sort of like a direct line from Katie Nolan to Kenny Mayne, right? Like people who like saw sports a little bit differently were sort of offbeat. He was
Yeah.
sort of, a predecessor. And there he is, like watching garbage time, watching like some, stupid bit that, I helped come up with probably. And I'm like, what are you doing here? Like, why are you like, you can come on the show. Like
Yeah.
you're Kenny Mayne. And he takes out his phone to take a picture. He's a totally nice guy, takes a photo. and he's out of memory on his phone. And he's like, "What do I do?" And I was like, I guess you have to delete something if you want a photo." And he's
Yeah.
like, "All right." And so he goes to his like Apple Music. And he's like, "I guess I'll delete this." And he's like deleting Beatles songs. So he's like deleting like yesterday to take like a picture of Katie's back. And I'm like,
Uh,
Kenny, like, don't do that. Like, you can be on the show. I'll take a photo for, I'll text it to you, whatever. But he did it. And then I was like, all right,
did he stay
that
for the
was a fun
show?
experience. Yeah, he stayed for a couple segments probably.
What was
Um,
the hardest you had to work to get someone on the show?
so then Drew Brees, I had
Okay.
this whole thing planned. And like you were saying, you go from thing to thing to thing to thing. And it was an hour show. And he was supposed to be in our C's, I think, maybe our D's.
Yeah.
Our C's go, our D's go. And it's like we have maybe 2 minutes between before we go to break in the D's. And I'm watching him on Doug Gottlieb's show. He's late from the thing before, and then he has to walk like through a crowd of people across like some barriers to get to us. And then I have to like prep him on this bit. Like, I don't know if he's going to want to do this chant. Like, it's his thing with his teammates. So we finish our D's, and I'm like, okay, he starts walking to us. He gets to us, and then like because it's the last show of the week, like all of the execs from Fox are there. Like every single
Yes.
person is watching us produce this last segment to say thanks to Katie, to whatever. Like the digital team, the like Shanks is there, like everybody is
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And so then Drew Brees walks up and it's my segment. And I'm like, hey, man, so that crowd of people, I've prepped them all day for this chant so that they can do the one,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
chant with you. And he's like, hey, man, like, I don't really do that. Like, I don't, that's like, I do that with my teammates. Like, that's not a thing I just like come out and do. And I'm like, but dude, like, they know all the words. And he's like, how do they know the words? Like, I like no one knows the words. Like I make it up, and I'm like, the one you did all of last year, and I just start doing it to him, like 1, 2, win for
Yeah.
you, and he's like, how did you find this? And I was like, I watched all of them. Like this is the job, and he's like, okay. And so then like this is all happening in a commercial break, so 2.5 minutes. He gets up. Katie then has to like bring him up through the crowd, and the crowd like starts doing the chant. He's in the crowd.
Yeah.
It lands, and then we only have like 4 minutes with him, and it was just like the hardest crunch in front of every executive I've ever seen. And he delivered. Thank God.
Did
Thank
you
God. He basically made me look like a non-idiot. I'll never forget it. It was like the coolest production moment of my life.
did you get credit? Did Fox give you credit for it?
Uh, Try, I guess. I don't know. I can't even really remember after. It's like as soon as it happened, I was just like, thank God. And then we just got hammered for, and then I took a flight home that night.
There is a lot of alcohol that weekend,
Yes, there
that
is.
week, I'll tell you that. And like the jockeying for parties thing is just, it's so frustrating. Like, hey, can you get me into this party? That's why my wife and I have just bought tickets for the
Yeah.
parties like that we want
They're
to go
not,
to.
they're depressing. Like it feels like a meat market. You're looking
What
around
it
and
is, it's
everyone's
like,
just like, who's here? Like it's you
like my
can't
wife and I
talk.
want to
Like,
go, like we thought about Saturday night. There's a one with Timberland and Diplo maybe. Um, it's a Maxim party. And I text my agent. She's like, yeah, no chance. I was like, fair enough. And then I text a marketing guy of mine who represents um, two former players. One is a little, not as much media. The second one, not, he hosts a morning show on national television. Okay. All right. And he said that person has not been allowed, or like not been on the VIP list for this party yet.
is it Nate?
Yes, it is Nate. And he was not on
Well,
this.
if you can't, if Nate can't get in,
Yes.
you're
So
you're toast.
so I was telling my wife about it, and she's like, why can't we get in? I go, Nate Burleson can't get in.
Yeah,
And I'm
we
like,
can't.
no,
There's no room that Nate Burleson can't get into that you
no,
or I
no.
can.
Now Nate's
Nate
gonna get in. He'll get into the party. This is
Nate
more of an
should.
anecdote.
Yes, the party starts when Nate walks
Yeah,
in.
but Nate
Nate
will
is
get
the
in the party.
best.
But the fact is, like, I just spend, it's a I don't want to say what it costs to have a shared ticket for a VIP table, but it's been worth it because my wife has a good time. Again, I think we're too old to do this now, Matt. But Super Bowl week it is what it is. I see a lot of my friends that I don't see all season, essentially, basically. I talk to the media all the time, which is nice to catch up with people, but it's going to be a long week.
Well,
Um,
I'm
Yeah.
glad you get to go. Send photos. If you see Nate, when you see Annie, say hello. We know a lot of the same people. Let's
Paige will be there. I
quickly,
could decide to
yeah,
Paige.
Paige from Blue Duck, shout out Paige, and Leah. Um,
Oh, Leah's gonna
yeah.
be there. I never met Leah. She lives in
Oh,
Charlotte
she
though.
lives in Charlotte. Yeah, she's the best.
Yeah.
Um, okay, I want to quickly talk about some of the coaching hires.
Yeah.
This time last week, the Dallas Cowboys had not hired Brian Schottenheimer yet. They waited
Oh,
until what, 10
jeez.
o'clock Eastern to make that announcement, I think. It was to the point where people were texting me at like 6, 7 o'clock Pacific in that like haze Friday night as a young parent, as you know, you're just sort of like you have no idea what's happening in your life. And you're just like, what? Like, huh? The Cowboys just hired who? Um, so I don't know. That one stands out to me. The Liam Cohen thing stands out. Like, where do you want to
Jeez.
go? Which ones have you
Well,
been
look,
impressed with any of these hires yet?
look. I think that the success or lack thereof, a lot of times it comes down to quarterback play, right, Matt? Who you have a quarterback. So, like, Pete Carroll, I think, was a hire by the Raiders just to make sure they're not terrible. Like, they're not going to be terrible under Pete Carroll, but he needs a quarterback, right? Like, they're not going to win the division. They're not going to win the Super Bowl, but they just won't be bad under Pete Carroll. That's my take on Pete Carroll. Look, Aaron Glenn's press conference was great. I loved it.
Yeah.
But who's your quarterback? Who's your quarterback? Like, it sounds
Yeah.
great. I like what you said. Show me your quarterback. Liam Cohen, the Duval thing was a mistake. For those who missed it, Jacksonville is Duval County. They say Duval or whatever. I don't know however they want to say it. They don't say it like Liam Cohen said it. So the head coach of
Duval.
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 So my problem with that wasn't that he said it, Matt, is that it was very forced. And I feel like you should be yourself in these moments and not try to force something that's not you. And I
Yeah.
understand that you want to be part of the community, but I feel like all the fans wanted to hear you say was, we're going to fix Trevor Lawrence and build a winner, not Duval, right? Like they didn't want to hear that. So I thought that was an unfortunate error by him. The story of him sort of ghosting the Bucks, Matt, I don't know. I didn't think
Interesting.
I didn't think he was that like in demand where he could just ghost a team.
So
And
he,
Jacksonville, yeah.
yeah, to maybe fill folks in who aren't
Okay,
as
so
dialed in. Yeah,
so,
go ahead.
so essentially what happened was he interviewed with Jacksonville, said no to Jacksonville, told the Bucks he'd re-sign as the offensive coordinator, make him one of the highest paid offensive coordinator.
Made a
After
big
Jackson,
statement.
yes, after Jacksonville was not able to get him, they fired their general manager because now they're 0 for 2. They wanted to hire another coach. I think Ben Johnson just said like, no, I'm not even interviewing.
Yeah.
So they fired the general manager. That was a thought of like, oh, that's because they couldn't hire Liam Cohen. They then call Liam Cohen to get him to come back to interview again. And he says yes and goes to interview and doesn't answer any of Tampa Bay's phone calls from Todd Bowles, from anyone, from Jason like everyone there. Ghosted them, like not a word. Now, his family said it's because their kid was sick and getting treatment or in the hospital, which I fully understand, Matt. You're a parent, I'm a parent. There's also downtime when the phone could be answered. And he was in Jacksonville and he's out to Jack. Now, I don't really care, to be fair. It is what it is. It's a business, it's competitive. But I think he owed them just the courtesy of saying, I'm taking this job, which it sounds like he didn't even give him that courtesy.
It seems this whole thing, including the Duval, like it all comes off a bit like maybe he's not totally sure who he is yet. It feels a little bit disingenuous. And I think that was the issue with Tampa was he had made, I sort of tried to butt in with this. Like he made a statement on social or to a reporter maybe that was like, I'm coming back. Like I'm excited about Tampa. I'll be back. And then immediately lies to his employer, which like if you've ever been on a job interview, you have to do that. You have to say like I have a doctor's appointment or whatever, and then
Yeah.
you go and do the job interview. That's how this works. But I think it was just like the whole thing felt very
Contrived.
orchestrated.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just a little disingenuous. And then he gets up there and his first press conference was like the core of our team is going to be honesty. And it was just like, come on, man. So I feel like you know how sometimes I mean, it's been a while for both of us, but like in our dating lives, that you could kind of tell in 2 seconds. It was just like, yeah, this might not work. Like I kind of get that feeling with head coaches now, and you're 36 of being an NFL fan, when sometimes I'm wrong. Dan Quinn, I didn't think that one was going to be a hit. Turns
Yeah,
out it is. Sometimes, you're right. Like, not sure if uh I don't know who's a good example. Like Zach Taylor, that was one I wasn't
yeah.
totally sure of. Uh, but whatever. I think that sometimes you can just sort of tell. Brian Schottenheimer's another one. It's really strange what's going on in Dallas. Just feels like
Well,
they're entering this huge
yeah.
rebuild
So
without even really saying it.
the Dallas one is essentially feels like they just hired someone who they can control. That press
Yeah,
conference was just about Jerry Jones.
yeah.
Like
It's a little insane.
it wasn't about Brian Schottenheimer at all. That's just a bad
Yeah.
hire. I wonder if they hired him just to get through this year and stink and then fire him and hire someone better. Like maybe Belichick after the year wants to come coach the Dallas Cowboys.
But
But
Belichick said, like, there was that weird story that leaked of, like, well, his contract isn't signed. And it came out around when McCarthy was sort of hemming and hawing.
yeah, but by then he's already knee deep in Carolina stuff. I
Dude,
feel
he
like by
quit.
then.
He quit from the Bills or the Jets after
Jets, I
they had
know.
already hired him. Like
I know.
he's not above that.
It's a little
I
different in college football with the recruiting though. Like he was already out recruiting and getting players to come.
Yeah, but who cares? Like, like
I don't I don't
have you seen Bill
I don't
Belichick? Like,
I don't disagree. I don't disagree.
yeah, I think that I
Yeah.
just think that Dallas. It's just so interesting. Like Dallas and now the Saints still an open job.
It seems like Kellen Moore's getting that job though, because he's getting a second interview this week. They said
Sure.
for New
But
Orleans.
like
Yeah,
Kellen Moore, like these are head coaching jobs. And we're talking about like
yeah.
Mike McCarthy seems to have passed, Cliff Kingsbury passed. Like
But who are
it
they going to hire? Who's better?
I think that's just kind of my point is, in the years past, we've and that's why I think it's interesting Pete Carroll went to the Raiders. Like what an uphill battle it's going to be there, straightening that team out, facing, three
Yeah,
playoff teams in that
Matt,
division.
I think the Raiders are just glad to be 9-8 with Pete Carroll.
Oh, dude,
Like,
they'd be happy to be 6-11. Like, I
yes,
think
correct.
honestly, with just like no BS, but I just think like I think that if things are changing a little where there are these like just bad situations that guys are steering clear of that I don't recall seeing. Like, I don't recall seeing this. Even my stupid team a few years ago, like they could get Ron Rivera, right? Like you can
Yeah,
get real coaching candidates. Um, but it felt like Chicago and New England were really desirable jobs. They got the two best
with
candidates.
quarterbacks. Yeah,
Yeah, and the quarterbacks, of course. But yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to see who New Orleans goes with. I assume it will be Kellen Moore, but like yikes.
yeah.
Um,
Before we do your Happy Commanders talk,
yeah.
I was waiting for the Daniel Snyder story to come out.
Yeah,
And I
I
tried to,
know.
I tried to be respectful and not text you like that early, but I maybe text you like at 5:50 in the morning Pacific time, which I hope it doesn't wake you up in the morning. But
No.
I couldn't wait to send you the article. It was was it Seth Wickersham or Don or
Yeah, both
Don? It
of
was
both of them.
both
Yeah.
ESPN, the partnership that breaks all those stories. And it was about the Commanders, Redskins football team's former owner, Dan Snyder, being miserable that the Commanders are good now. And I can't imagine anything made you more happy that morning than seeing that article.
Yeah. It was surreal, actually. What was really surreal about it was, you kind of like I kind of like blocked him from my memory in some ways. And I don't think I remembered how close it was to all falling apart. And even like the name change, the sale, like they were all kind of forced upon him, which doesn't happen in sports ownership. And like the price of the franchise, like it was this ludicrously high price that was intentionally sort of there to scare off buyers. Like it almost fell apart. And then the second the team excised this horrible owner, they make the NFC Championship. And this story comes out, and like the whole sports world was like sort of high-fiving each other, which was so surreal because, obviously like this team has been the butt of a joke for so long. But yeah, what a crazy story. And it was kind of nice to just see like Washington's sort of like Detroit a few years ago now, where everybody's just like happy to see them in the mix
Yeah.
for the next couple of years, which is nice. It's nice to be on that
Uh,
end of the goodwill.
the thing I think that I maybe not known about the story about him trying to blow up the sale at the 11th hour, and I think the
I
article
didn't know
said
that. Yeah.
his wife was like, "It's time."
Yeah.
Like
Well, and
like
Joe Gibbs, who,
yeah, Joe Gibbs, yeah,
was the only person that seemingly could get through to Snyder from the the organization. He just sort of said like it's you got to let this go.
Does
Um,
he get an EPL team?
it's a great
English
question.
Premier League. He
I don't
wants
know
a
if it
team.
Premier League, but it could be like a,
Those those
Wrexham type deal.
those costs for those the
Yeah.
cost for an EPL team is astronomical.
I did. Did you notice that the the every sort of like the Capitals wish the Commanders good luck, right? The New York Rangers wish the Knicks good luck. Like there's sort of that city synergy. The 76ers did not
I've
wish the
seen.
Eagles good luck because the owner owns both teams. I love that.
So for those who the owner of the 76ers is the owner of the Commanders. Shaw
Right.
Shares is the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
owner. And there's yes, and the Eagles fans are upset that the Sixers have not commented at all on the Eagles' successes this postseason because the owner is the Commanders
Yeah.
is
Jaden Daniels already made more conference championships than Joel Embiid in one try versus 11.
well, I mean, the Embiid thing I saw he's basically played as many games as he's missed in his career, which is just wildly insane. But hey
Pretty
man,
astonishing.
make the quarters 10 minutes. That's
That'll
what Adam
fix it.
Silver wants. All right, anything else on Commanders, Matt? What do you want to say? I know
I
we've been
guess I
waiting.
just want to say, I didn't have some grand speech planned. I think that for maybe I'll speak for Commanders fans here. I was a season ticket holder of that team from my family was from I think 1999 till like 2010. I think it was Jim Zorn who was we were the one who we were just like so long we can't do this. Right before RG3, although I went to some of those games too. And man, it just like reconnected me with my childhood in a way that it's like this is why we watch sports. And I'm really grateful to that team for that. And I kind of wondered how all these other fans feel. Like for just like when you can actually like for I mean you played, so you're like maybe the wrong person to ask this, but like you get your hopes up when your team is good. Like
Correct.
you're not like worried about like what's going to happen if the stadium falls on the opposing quarterback as he's walking into the locker room. Like that's the kind of thing Washington fans were worried about when the stadium literally fell on Jalen Hurts a few years ago.
Yes.
Um, and it sort of reconnected me back like with family and like memories and just these nice experiences that kind of like reminded me what we do all this for. Like this is why people care about sports is because it brings out like the child in you in some ways. And it was really refreshing to have that experience. And like that's what I'll remember from this year is
Yeah.
like actually remembering like what it's like to hope for your team and not just be like, yeah, they suck. Like make fun of them on podcasts, like ignore them in rundowns of shows I work on. And that's just like a super unforgettable experience for me. So I'm glad for it. I hope they come back next year.
The Commanders
We'll have
head on
plenty
for
of
this
time to talk
listening.
about their off season and others on the next couple weeks.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
yeah, it's been fun. Thanks for to all our listeners
yeah.
and viewers for letting me sort of indulge on that topic for the last few weeks.
Sports, and we're obviously big sports fans, not just, NFL, but like it really does make your life more happy when your teams are good. like, because you invest so much emotion, right, into being a fan. And there certainly gets a point where there's some apathy, but the Commanders were like, I have some teams I root for now that are just sort of boring. Like the Giants baseball, they're just boring. Like I watch them play, but just like, I don't feel any sort of way inside. Watch Oregon play, I feel a certain way. Certainly, they're number one for me on that. The Chiefs, I don't feel as much as the Oregon Lakers, not as much. Um, but that you want that feeling, right? You want that. I know, even though it goes bad sometimes, you still that feeling you have is, I don't do a lot of my life, Matt, that where I get that adrenaline rush. I would say, you get that watching sports though. Watch your favorite team, win or
Yeah.
lose.
Yep.
Like you get that, and I do appreciate that of it's a lot of football too because it's such a long season, and there's so few games that everything matters so much. NBA obviously not the same way. Baseball's not the same way. Um, the Wizards 6-41 now, Matt. You've been following the Wizard season at all?
Can't say I have. Can't
Yeah,
say I
they
have.
played the Lakers. Like Bronny got like 5 points last night.
Yeah. Great. Good bully for
Yeah,
him.
you're not NBA, not NBA. Do you have any shows? NBA shows?
We
You
do.
have some
Yeah.
NBA shows. Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have to watch. You don't watch NBA much.
I do. I do.
But you more when
Mostly
football's
starting
over.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Same
it's
with me. What about
it's
college
like
basketball?
I stay familiar, and then it's like, oh, it's the All-Star break. Like, okay, now it's time to pay attention.
What about college basketball?
Yeah, where I'm up to speed on both the men's and lady terps. Like, let's go.
How
We're
the
doing
ladies?
great.
How the men's church doing?
They had three straight top 25 wins, two on the road. So feeling good.
Oregon stinks now. So
Yeah.
we lost a couple games in a row. Um, all right, anything else?
No, man. Have fun in New Orleans. Have fun with Meredith. And I'll see you next Friday, yeah?
Yeah, we'll do it live from New Orleans. We'll talk everything Super Bowl. We'll have props. We'll have Pine Sports as usual. Be part of that discussion. Go to pinesports.com slash subscribe. Promo code Jeff. We do get the email saying people have subscribed. We do
Yeah,
appreciate
thanks to
that.
everyone.
50% off, Matt. And then you also just check them out on social media. They have daily props that Jackson puts together for NBA, for NHL. No college basketball, just pro sports. And then obviously, well, baseball soon enough, and we'll keep this podcast rolling here as we get to the off season. So one more week next week of gambling in the National Football League, Matt. We'll do it big for Super Bowl, and then before we know it, draft will be here, and we'll be rolling to the summer. All right, guys, take care, everyone. Have a good weekend. We'll talk to you guys next week. Have a good one. Take
See
care.
you, buddy.